Hello everyone, welcome to VJ's World. If you have not subscribed my channel yet, please do subscribe, like and share. We are going to read a wonderful story, The Mouse and the Weasel. A mouse and a weasel once lived in a house of a poor peasant, one of whose friends fell sick and the doctor prescribed him husked sesame. The weasel had stolen the sesame. Presently in came the peasant's wife, and seeing a great part of the sesame gone, stood wondering. After a while, out came the weasel to carry off more of the grain. But espying the woman seated there, he carried it out and lay it back upon the rest. It was clear to the woman that it was not the weasel who stole the grain. But yet the woman didn't stop watching. She was determined to find out the thief. The weasel guessed what was in her mind, so he went to the mouse and said to him, "The master of the house has brought home sesame and has eaten to his fill and his family, and left much." The mouse, taking, ran up to the sesame and tried to steal it. The woman killed the mouse, the sparrow, and the peacock. There was once a sparrow that used to visit a certain tree. Of all the birds, it was the first to go into him and the last to leave him. One day, a flock of birds assembled on a high mountain and chose the peacock their king. They appointed the sparrow his secretary. One day, the sparrow didn't come at the usual time, and the peacock asked him the reason. The sparrow answered that he was afraid of the hunter, who caught two cranes on his way. The peacock assured her to safety. On the other hand, the sparrow continued to visit the king, taking care of himself, till one day he saw two sparrows fighting on the ground and said to himself, "How can I, who am the king's wazir, look on and see sparrows fighting in my neighborhood?" So he flew down to reconcile them. But the fowler cast the net over them and seized them. The sparrow said to himself, "I have fallen into that which I feared, and it was none but the peacock that inspired me with a false security." A man and his brothers. A man lived with his brothers. When his father died, the man adopted the same means of living and became a merchant. After a while, he opened a shop. Later, he resolved to trade in foreign countries. At the end of the year, he came back in a poor condition. The man came back to his house and they lived together as before. Later, his second brother joined a caravan and returned at the end of the year in the same condition as his elder brother. After some time, they bought merchandise and set forth with a favorable wind. After 2 months, they arrived at a seaport where they did a great trade. When he stopped on the shore, a poorly dressed woman came up to him, kissed his hand, and asked him to marry her and take her on board his ship. He married her, but his brothers began to be jealous of his prosperity. One night, when he was sleeping, they threw him and his wife into the sea. His wife was a fairy, and So she did not let him drown, and she condemned his brothers and made them dogs. The story of Zubeda. Once there were three sisters called Amina, Safi, and the youngest Zubeda. After their father's death, the property was equally divided among them. The two elder married sisters followed their husbands, but soon got they both get divorced and came back to the youngest sister. They lived very comfortably together for some months. Then they went to Balsora for trade. They found all the people turned into stones except the prince. He told them how the misfortune befell on the city. Then Zubaydah, along with her sisters and the prince, left the place, and returned to their own country. Zubaydah's sisters grew jealous of the friendship between the prince and their sister. When Zubaydah was asleep, her sisters threw her and the prince into the sea. The prince drowned, and by good fortune, Zubaydah fell on the ground. There she found a fairy with two dogs. The fairy told her that they were her sisters, and the fairy had changed them due to their cruelty. She gave the dogs to Zubaydah and told her to give 100 lashes with a rod to them as punishment.